Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Talks with Kaya. If you don't know, my name's Kaya. I'm your host for this podcast, all about lifestyle, maybe some critical thinking, just all around whatever I choose to talk about, pretty much. This episode is all about how your environment affects you. So I broke it up into two categories: your physical environment and your mental environment, and then subcategories within those. So let's start talking about it. So the first one we're going to get into is your physical environment. The first thing I thought of was the people you surround yourself with. I once saw this TikTok of a girl saying that you can tell who a person is based on who they're friends with. So even though someone may seem one way, that the people they surround themselves with, if they seem the complete opposite, behind closed doors, that person probably acts more like their friends and the people they hang out with. It's not a perfect science, and I'm definitely not saying you should judge people based on who they hang out with, but I do think it's a good principle to kind of keep in mind. When you hang out with people who don't respect your morals and values, it can make you passive in your understanding of the world. So if you want your life to be successful, happy, and positive, you should surround yourself with those who think those same values. Our natural instinct is to follow the crowd, be a part of a group. So if your group does not align with what you want your life to be, you should really reconsider that. For example, if you hang out with people who are pessimistic, negative, and just have a bad outlook on life, you'll start adopting those values even subconsciously. You may not think that you think that way, but because of that exposure from the people you hang out with, that can make you think those things and really believe that. I saw a quote that said, "You become what you think." So if those around you think in a way that doesn't benefit you, you probably shouldn't be hanging out with those people. Okay, next one is clean space, clean mind. And we hear this one all the time, clean your room because your room is a reflection of your mind, basically. So like if your room is messy, you might feel stress or anxiety. And I noticed that for myself, when my space is messy or disorganized, I feel really overwhelmed and anxious and unmotivated, and I end up getting nothing done. I find it harder to concentrate on important tasks. So if you're a student or you work from home, definitely make sure that whatever space you are doing your work in is clean and organized, so then your work can reflect that. The most obvious answer would be to like clean your room and your space, but I know for me and for many others, it can become very overwhelming and hard to keep your space organized and clean. I know that for my dorm specifically, just like my room alone, it's such a small space that I have to keep it organized or else it literally looks crazy and I feel crazy. What I have found that works for me is to have simple tasks that keep my space manageable. So, some days I'll do one part of cleaning like my dishes or, organize my desk. And then the other time I'll do my laundry and, organize that. I find that breaking it up into a smaller task and making it a little bit less daunting makes it a lot more manageable, at least for me. And having a clean space doesn't just apply to your living space. This also can be your computer, your phone, any papers, just to make your life more organized. These are also things that should stay organized for your life to be a little bit easier. I know some people thrive on that messy space, but if that makes you feel overwhelmed and stress, you should really, find things that work for you to make your space more manageable and more organized. Okay, the last subcategory of your physical environment is your media diet. So a media diet is the type of media you consume, how much of that you consume. So this can be social media, it could be music, even the news, anything like that. So when you consume any type of media, it should do one of three things: educate you, inspire you, or make you think. Whether you are consuming social media, TV shows, music, news, books, and literature, your media diet should push you in a space of growth and not regression. First is education. The media has so many ways for you to learn. Whether it's enjoyable news or not, you should be learning something. Without media, we are at a disadvantage of becoming a more uneducated society, which is always bad. I think in today's world, we're really lucky because we have so much information and so much media at our disposal at all times. And I think it's really important to take advantage of that. Using media to educate yourself is a way more productive way to use it than endlessly scrolling. Even when you feel overwhelmed by the world around you and it makes you stressed and anxious, Without this exposure, you would become complacent and ignorant in the world around you. Media is a way to grow and expand your mind, and I think it's such a privilege to use that. Even you being able to watch this video right now is a privilege, so I encourage you to use your media in a way that is beneficial. We are really so lucky that we have the chance to consume media in a way that we want. Okay, media should be inspiring you creatively, mentally, physically. There's so much positive media out there that you can use in your own life. By learning new things and seeing different possibilities, you can envision a life for yourself that expands way past what you have right now. I love to watch lifestyle content because it inspires me and it pushes me to be a better version of myself, and I love to see others and what they do to be productive or to, live a certain lifestyle that I would want to live. And it like makes me more knowledgeable about the life I want to have versus the life I have right now and I'm currently living. So I think making sure that your media aligns with what you want and what you want to achieve is really important. And, that can push you to actually accomplish these things because you're having that exposure to it. Lastly, your media should be encouraging brain connectivity. So no more brain rot, no more AI, use your media in a way that makes you think, makes you use your brain in a way. And this is not only important for your mental health, but also for your physical health. Make more lines on your brain, please, because it builds longevity and honestly it just makes you a more well-rounded person, which is always important. Okay, next we're going to move into your mental environment. For my first one, I want to go off of a quote: "You cannot heal in the environment where you got sick." 2018 was probably the worst year I can remember for me personally, and I honestly don't even know why it like felt so bad, but during this year, I think I was probably in like sixth grade or something. And for some reason, I went through like a minimalist phase where I if you remember that like joke about beige babies, and it was basically how millennials are raising their kids with like no color and it's all beige and stuff like that. I literally became a beige baby, and I talk about this a lot because I think it's just so random. I only wore neutrals. I always kept my hair in a low bun. In a way, I think it was me trying to be more mature, even though I was a sixth grader. At the ripe age of sixth grade, I was like, I am an adult now. I have to be grown and I cannot. Like, I don't know. It was honestly like looking back at it, I think it's kind of funny, but I also really feel bad for that version of myself because for some reason I felt the need to be mature and to be like an adult, even though I was in sixth grade. Like, okay, but then the year later in seventh grade, I honestly think that was the time of my life. I had such a good seventh grade year, before we went into lockdown. Okay, this was also the year that the Visco girl trend was trending, like the summer before school had started. And I remember that me and my best friend, we showed up to the first day of school I had like 8 scrunchies on my wrist. I had the puka shell necklace. Like, I think my hair was like in a half up, half down, like pigtails or something. And even though it was cringy and weird and a little off putting, I was so happy. Like, I was genuinely so happy to be where I was. Even when me and my friend look back at this year, we have no regrets. Like, every time we talk about it, we're like, we were weird. It was honestly super cringy, but like we were happy and having fun, and I think that was what made that year so good for me. That year I also went through so many phases and so many different aesthetics that I think it allowed me to grow without boundaries that I was putting on myself like the year before. So, the year before it was really rough for me, but I decided to leave that mental environment and go into a new environment that had way more color and way more creativity. Even coming to now, my first semester of college was really, really rough. I was doing well academically and, doing all the things I needed to succeed in my classes, but I think I held myself back from really enjoying the experience. I didn't want to go to the school I'm at, but, I'm happy I'm here now. I was like away from home and everything was so new and so different. And I didn't let myself enjoy the newness that I was experiencing. Towards the end of the semester, I just accepted what my life was. Like, that sounds so dramatic. I accepted that I was at this school, I was in this town, and I started to put myself out there more because I just accepted the cards that were given to meet, and tried to make the most of it. And then by the end of the semester, I was having a little bit more fun, enjoying myself a little bit more. I also think I just got comfortable in the space I was in. So this semester, even though it's only been like 2 weeks in, I feel way more ahead than my entire first semester in college. So that's just some anecdotes about my mental environment and how I changed from one to get to another. Okay, my next one is a positive mindset. Okay, this is connected to the last subsection I mentioned about how having a positive mindset will always yield you the results that you want. Your mind is such a powerful thing that I think it's important for you to make sure that it works for what you want. I've talked a few ways about how to make a more positive mindset based on who you surround yourself with and the content that you consume. But I think the biggest thing for you to have a positive mindset is to make the conscious decision that you want a positive mindset. You have to start thinking of yourself as a positive person. I really like the lucky girl mindset, I guess, for this reason. If you don't know the lucky girl mindset or whatever it was this trend where you would say like, I'm so lucky I get to do this, and you would basically put yourself in a mindset where you could get all the things you want and you could do all the things you want because you're lucky. And I think it's kind of a fake it till you make it type of deal where you tell yourself, I'm so lucky I'm going to get this job, I'm so lucky I'm going to get into this school, I'm so lucky I'm going to be able to do all these things. And I think it encourages you to think of yourself in this positive way. And eventually this will become your reality. When you speak positive things to yourself and into your space, you really start to believe them. And I think that you can convince yourself of many things. So convince yourself that you are confident, convince yourself that you are successful, convince yourself that you are talented, and convince yourself that you are positive. I think viewing yourself in this way will also make others view yourself in this way. The way you speak about yourself sets the standard for how everyone else should be speaking about you. When you respect yourself, you set the boundaries for others to also respect you. Within your mental environment, I think what's really important is your concept of identity. I mentioned in the first section of this episode that you become what you think. There was a video by Mel Robbins, and it was basically on how to stop procrastinating. And one of the things that really stuck with me was she said you have to stop thinking of yourself as a procrastinator and think of procrastination as what it actually is. It is an action. I think about athletes a lot when I thought about this section because in my personal experience, when I was playing sports in high school, I pretty much only did that, and that became my identity. So when I stopped competing, it was a really big struggle for me to view myself outside of an athlete because my whole life I just kind of thought of myself in that way. And I've seen a few videos of other athletes who, are actually good at their sport, talk about this as well, where they don't know who they would be without athletics. And I think it's a really scary thing to have all your sense of identity relying on something that can be taken away from you so easily, from like an injury or, something out of your control. I bring this up because your sense of identity ultimately creates your life. When evaluating your concept of identity, you should think of what makes me me. And I encourage you to think of things that aren't tangible or physical because those things can always be lost or changed. So if your identity relies on something that can be lost or changed, your foundation of what makes you you relies on something entirely out of your person. Okay, so take some time to reflect on that. And I know for a lot of you, especially if you're like me, you would think, wow, who am I? Like, what is my identity? And I think that all the time. I think it's my Roman Empire. I think about it like every day. So you don't have to have it all figured out right now. And it's probably best if you don't have it all figured out right now because your life is going to change and that means you will change. So just accept that you're going to change and your identity is going to shift, but I think having that core foundation is really good. So make sure your core identity is something you're happy with and something that you are content with others viewing you in that way. But most importantly, I think you should make sure that if you were to step outside your body and take a look at yourself and see who you are as a person and make sure that's someone that you're happy with. And I don't know how you can figure this out because I'm still figuring it out myself, and I think that's okay. And I think that's part of life, is just to figure things out as you go and but not take it like too seriously. I was a whole lot of nothing. I basically just contradicted everything I just said, but like I think you get the point. That's all for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you either learned something or you're inspired in some way, or this episode made you think, as all your media should be doing. Definitely make sure to subscribe to the podcast and also follow my TikTok and Instagram, both at talkswithkiya, for more content from me. Especially on TikTok, I'm posting on there a lot more often. I have a few videos like this where I'm talking, so if you want to check that out, definitely go do so. I hope you guys have amazing rest of your month, amazing 2026. Bye bye.